The evening sun was sinking behind the tall glass buildings, painting the city in soft shades of gold and orange. Inside one of those buildings, a man named Adrian Cole sat behind a large oak desk, staring at his computer screen. He was a man everyone respected, though few truly knew. To most, he was the kind of person who never smiled too easily, and always seemed too busy for small talk. His company, a well-known technology firm, had grown fast under his careful leadership. People often said that Adrian had the kind of mind that saw solutions before others even recognized a problem. That evening, the office was almost empty. Most of the employees had gone home, leaving behind only the quiet hum of air conditioners and the soft ticking of the clock on the wall. Adrian was reviewing a long report that his assistant had sent earlier. Numbers, charts, and market summaries filled the screen. He sighed, rubbing his eyes. He had been sitting there for hours. It was time to go home, but he still had a few more emails to send. He picked up his phone to call someone, but before he could dial, his office cleaner, Mrs. Evelyn, quietly entered the room. She was a middle-aged woman who had worked in the building for several years. She never spoke much, always polite and respectful. Adrian had seen her many times mopping the floors, cleaning the windows, or organizing the meeting rooms after everyone had left. He didn't know much about her life, but he could tell she was someone who took her job seriously. "Good evening, sir," she said softly, carrying her cleaning cart. Adrian looked up from his computer and nodded. "Evening, Evelyn. You can go ahead." "I'm just finishing up," she smiled gently. "Thank you, sir. I'll try not to disturb you." She moved quietly around the office, cleaning one corner at a time, her steps light and careful. Adrian continued working, barely noticing her presence. After another half hour, he finally stood up, stretched, and gathered his things. He checked his watch. It was almost 8. He decided he would finish the rest at home. "Good night, Evelyn," he said as he walked toward the door. "Good night, sir," she replied, not looking up from her work. Adrian left the office, locking the main door behind him. He went down to the parking lot, got into his car, and drove home through the dimly lit streets. His mind was still half focused on the report. It wasn't until he reached home and sat on the couch that he realized something. He didn't have his phone. He checked his pockets, the car seat, and his briefcase. Nothing. He sighed heavily. He must have left it on his desk. For a moment he thought of letting it go until morning, but then he remembered that his phone wasn't just for calls. It had important business data, messages, and client information. He couldn't leave it overnight at the office. Grumbling to himself, Adrian grabbed his car keys and drove back to the building. The security guard at the entrance was surprised to see him again, but didn't question it. Adrian walked briskly to the elevator and pressed the button for the top floor. The building was eerily quiet now, with only a few lights still on. When he reached his office door, he noticed that the lights inside were still glowing softly. He could also hear a faint sound, a voice. He paused. Someone was talking inside his office. His first thought was that maybe someone had broken in, but then he recognized the cleaner's voice. Mrs. Evelyn was still there. That wasn't unusual. She often stayed late. But then he heard another voice, young and bright, clearly not hers. "Hello?" "Yes, hello. He's not here right now, but maybe I can take a message." Adrian frowned. That was a child's voice, or perhaps a teenager's. He quietly pushed the door open and stepped inside. His phone was lying on the desk, and standing beside it was a girl, maybe 16 or 17, holding the phone to her ear. She looked up suddenly, startled to see him. For a moment, no one spoke. The girl froze, the phone still in her hand. Mrs. Evelyn turned around quickly from the other side of the room, her eyes wide with surprise and embarrassment. "Sir, I'm so sorry," she said quickly, wiping her hands on her apron. "I told her not to touch anything. Please forgive her. She didn't mean—" Adrian raised a hand slightly. "It's fine," he said calmly, still looking at the girl. "I just forgot my phone. Who's on the line?" The girl looked nervous. It was ringing for a long time, and I thought it might be important," she said softly. "I didn't mean to intrude." Adrian nodded slowly. "I see, and who were you speaking to?" "It's someone asking about a project," she replied. "He said there was a problem with some code update." "I think he thought I was your assistant." Adrian blinked in surprise. "You spoke to him about the project?" The girl nodded again, her eyes honest but slightly shy. "He sounded worried, so I told him it might be because of the new system change this morning. I heard you mention it when you were on a call earlier. Mrs. Evelyn looked horrified. Sir, I promise she didn't mean to eavesdrop. She was just waiting for me to finish cleaning. But Adrian wasn't angry. In fact, he was curious. He studied the girl for a moment. She had kind eyes, slightly tired but full of alertness. She wore a plain sweater and jeans, her hair tied back neatly. There was something about the way she spoke, confident yet respectful, that caught his attention. What's your name? He asked gently. Lila, she said quietly. Lila, he repeated. And you're Mrs. Evelyn's daughter? Yes, sir, Mrs. Evelyn said quickly. She sometimes waits for me here when I work late. It's safer than waiting outside. Adrian nodded slowly. That's understandable. He turned back to Lila. You said the caller was asking about code updates. How did you know about that? Lila hesitated. I like computers, she said simply. I read about them online. I also help my classmates fix their laptops sometimes. I just guessed what the problem might be. Adrian couldn't help but smile slightly. That's an impressive guess, he said. You might be right, Lila smiled shyly. Thank you, sir. He picked up his phone and checked the call log. The number belonged to one of his smaller clients who had indeed been having trouble with a system update earlier in the day. Adrian had spent half the morning dealing with it. The girl had somehow managed to calm the man down, and even suggested something reasonable. That was rare. Most adults wouldn't have handled it so smoothly. Do you want to study computers? He asked suddenly. Lila's eyes brightened a little, then dimmed just as quickly. Yes, she said softly, but I don't think it will happen. It's expensive. Mrs. Evelyn looked away, clearly uncomfortable. She's a bright girl, sir, she said quietly. Always reading, always learning. But things are hard right now. Adrian nodded slowly, sensing there was more to the story but not wanting to push. Well, he said, picking up his briefcase. You have a good head on your shoulders, Lila. Not everyone can stay that calm on a business call. She smiled again, a little embarrassed. I just didn't want your caller to worry. As he turned to leave, Adrian glanced at Mrs. Evelyn. Don't worry about it, he said. She didn't do anything wrong. Thank you, sir, Mrs. Evelyn said softly, relief in her voice. Adrian left the office, but as he walked down the corridor, he couldn't stop thinking about what had just happened. There was something about that girl's confidence that felt unusual. Most people in her situation would have panicked, hung up the phone, or said nothing, but she had chosen to help. She had taken responsibility without fear. That night, as he sat in his car at a red light, Adrian replayed the moment in his mind. He could still hear her calm voice answering his phone, explaining something she shouldn't even have known about. There was intelligence there, natural, unpolished, but strong. When he reached home again, he placed the phone on the table and sat back, staring at the ceiling. He had spent years surrounded by professionals with degrees, experience, and training. Yet that young girl who came from a world far different from his had shown more instinct and composure than some of his staff. For reasons he couldn't explain, the incident stayed in his mind long after he went to bed. He found himself wondering what her story was, what her dreams were, and why life had placed someone so capable in such a difficult situation. He didn't know it then, but that small moment, returning to the office for a forgotten phone, was going to change more than just his evening. It was the start of something neither of them could have expected. The next morning began like any other day for Adrian Cole. He walked into his office with a cup of coffee in one hand and a stack of papers in the other. But something about the previous night still lingered in his thoughts. He couldn't stop thinking about that moment when he had opened the door and found Lila holding his phone. Her calm voice, her confident way of speaking, the way she had handled that business call, it all stayed in his mind. He sat at his desk, sipping his coffee, and stared at the phone for a long moment. The same phone she had picked up. He wondered what she was doing right now. Probably at school, he thought. Or maybe helping her mother with chores. It wasn't just curiosity. It was admiration. There was something rare about that kind of composure at her age. He had seen university graduates crumble under pressure, yet that girl had handled a real business situation with steady calm. He opened his emails, but he wasn't really focused. Halfway through reading a report, he heard a knock on his office door. It was his assistant, Mr. Gray, a middle-aged man who had worked with him for years. "Morning, sir," Gray said. "You've got a meeting at 10 with the marketing team, and the client from last night called again to thank you." Adrian raised an eyebrow. To thank me? Yes, sir. He said the young lady who answered your phone gave him some advice that solved his issue. He was impressed. Adrian leaned back in his chair, trying not to smile. Interesting, he said casually. Remind me to call him later. After the meeting, Adrian spent the rest of the morning thinking about that conversation. By afternoon, curiosity got the better of him. He decided to stop by the lower floors where the cleaning staff worked. He rarely went there, but something told him he needed to. He found Mrs. Evelyn in the hallway, wiping the glass panels of the meeting room. She looked surprised to see him there. Sir, good afternoon, she said quickly, straightening her back. Is everything all right? Yes, Adrian said, smiling politely. Everything's fine. I just wanted to ask, your daughter Lila, is she in school today? Mrs. Evelyn nodded. Yes, sir. She finishes at 3 and then waits for me here until I'm done. Adrian nodded slowly. Good. Tell her I'd like to speak to her for a few minutes this evening, if that's all right with you. The cleaner looked nervous. Sir, did she do something wrong yesterday? She didn't mean to… No, Adrian interrupted kindly. She didn't do anything wrong. I just want to talk to her. Mrs. Evelyn relaxed a little but still looked unsure. Of course, sir. I'll tell her. That evening, when most employees had left, Adrian stayed behind again. He looked over some documents, though his mind was on something else entirely. Around 6:30, there was a gentle knock on his door. Come in, he said. The door opened and Mrs. Evelyn stepped inside with her daughter. Lila stood quietly beside her, holding her school bag. She looked a little shy but curious. Good evening, sir, she said politely. Good evening, Lila, Adrian said with a smile. Please have a seat. She hesitated, then sat in the chair across from his desk. Her mother stood nearby, clutching her cleaning cloth nervously. Adrian leaned forward slightly. I wanted to thank you for how you handled that phone call last night. The client you spoke to called me this morning. He said your suggestion helped him solve his problem. Lila's eyes widened. Really, he said that? Adrian nodded. He did. You must have a good understanding of technology. She blushed a little. I just read a lot, sir. I watch videos online and try to learn from them. I like fixing things. I guess I got lucky. Luck has little to do with it, Adrian said with a small smile. It takes intelligence and confidence to do what you did. Mrs. Evelyn looked proud but still uneasy. Sir, she just tries to be helpful. I keep telling her not to touch anything at work. It's all right, Adrian said. Sometimes curiosity can lead to good things. He paused, then added, Tell me, Lila, what do you want to do in the future? She hesitated. I want to study computer science, sir. I want to build software or apps that make life easier for people. But her voice trailed off. But, Adrian prompted gently. She looked down at her hands. We don't really have the money for university. My mother already works so hard. I can't ask for more. Mrs. Evelyn's eyes softened. She's very determined, sir, but things are tough. I'm just trying to keep us going. Adrian nodded slowly. He could feel the weight of their honesty. There was no self-pity in their words, only quiet truth. He thought for a moment, then said, You know, we have a small internship program here for high school students who are interested in technology. It's mostly observation, but they get to learn from our staff. Would you be interested in something like that? Lila's eyes lit up instantly. Are you serious, sir? Of course, Adrian said. You'd come after school a few days a week just for a couple of hours. You can observe, learn, maybe even help with some small projects if you'd like. We can make it official so there's no confusion. Mrs. Evelyn looked overwhelmed. Sir, I don't know what to say. That's too generous. It's not generosity, Adrian said simply. It's recognizing potential. Lila smiled brightly for the first time that evening. I'd love that, sir. Thank you so much. Adrian smiled back. Then it's settled. I'll have my assistant prepare the details. You can start next week. When they left the office, Adrian sat back in his chair, feeling an odd warmth in his chest. He wasn't sure why he felt so pleased about this decision, but something about giving that girl a chance felt right. The next few days went by quickly. Lila's first day as an intern came sooner than expected. She arrived wearing a simple blouse and jeans, carrying a small notebook. Adrian introduced her to some of the staff in the IT department. At first, they were confused, but once he explained the situation, they welcomed her kindly. He watched from a distance as she moved from one desk to another, asking polite questions, taking notes, and observing carefully. She didn't talk much, but when she did, she spoke with surprising clarity. One afternoon, a software engineer named Daniel showed her a small code error he couldn't figure out. Lila looked at it for a few seconds, thought quietly, and then pointed out a misplaced symbol. Daniel tested it, and it worked. Everyone in the room stared at her, stunned. "How did you notice that so quickly?" he asked. She smiled shyly. "I've seen something like that before on a tutorial. It's easy to miss." Adrian happened to be passing by and heard the conversation. He smiled to himself. She wasn't just curious, she was talented. As days passed, Lila became more comfortable around the office. She greeted everyone politely, worked quietly, and always showed respect. The staff grew fond of her. Even the receptionist started keeping snacks for her after school, but not everyone was pleased. Some of the senior employees began whispering that Adrian was being too kind to a cleaner's daughter. They thought it looked unprofessional. One of them, a manager named Claire, even mentioned it during a staff meeting. "Sir," she said carefully, "people are talking. They're saying it's unusual for you to personally mentor a young girl who isn't part of our program." Adrian looked at her calmly. "Do you have a problem with her performance, Claire?" "No, sir, not at all. She's very bright, but people might misunderstand." "Then let them," Adrian said simply. "I'm not here to please rumors. I'm here to build potential." The room went quiet. No one dared to argue. Later that evening, when the office had emptied out, Lila knocked gently on his door. "Sir, I just wanted to say thank you again," she said. "Everyone's been kind and I'm learning a lot. I hope I'm not causing you any trouble." Adrian looked up from his work and smiled. "You're not causing trouble, Lila. You're doing well. Just keep learning. That's all I ask," she smiled shyly. "I will, sir." As she turned to leave, Adrian said, "And Lila, don't let anyone make you feel like you don't belong here. You've earned your place by showing interest and effort. That's what truly matters." She nodded, eyes bright. "Thank you, sir. I won't forget that." When she left, Adrian leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. Something about her reminded him of his own beginnings when he was a young man with big dreams but few chances. Maybe that was why he felt drawn to help her. That night, as the lights of the city glowed outside his window, he realized that sometimes life brought people together for reasons that only made sense later. What had started as a simple mistake, a forgotten phone, was slowly turning into something much bigger. And though Adrian didn't know it yet, helping Lila would soon change more than just her future. It would quietly reshape his own. Of course, here's a more Part 3 of your story, written in simple, natural English and around 1,500 words, continuing from where Part 2 left off. The story stays human-centric, emotional, and engaging, with clean, YouTube-friendly language and natural flow. The weeks passed, and Lila slowly became a familiar face around the office. Everyone had gotten used to seeing her small frame walking quickly through the hallways, notebook in hand, always paying attention, always eager to learn. She never disturbed anyone, but her quiet presence brought something warm and hopeful into the building. Every afternoon after school, she would arrive at the front desk, greet the receptionist with a smile, and go straight to the IT department. She sat beside the engineers, watched them code, and sometimes asked questions that made even the senior staff think twice. There was a light in her eyes whenever she learned something new, pure curiosity mixed with excitement. Adrian often watched her from his office window. He would glance out between meetings and see her sitting among the programmers, her head bent over the computer screen, her pencil moving fast across her small notebook. It reminded him of himself years ago, when he was just starting out with nothing but ambition and a cheap computer. One evening, as the office was getting quiet, Adrian walked into the tech room. Lila was still there, staring at the monitor. The other employees had gone home. "You're still here?" he asked. She turned around quickly and smiled. "Oh, sir. I was just finishing this small task. Mr. Daniel said I could try checking this code error. I think I fixed it." Adrian looked over her shoulder. The lines of code on the screen looked complicated even to him. "You fixed that?" She nodded. "I just compared it to the old version. There was one missing command," he smiled, impressed. "You're learning faster than I expected." She looked down shyly. "I just really like it, sir. It doesn't feel like work to me." He nodded slowly. "That's the best way to learn, when it doesn't feel like work." He paused, then added gently, "You should go home now. Your mother will be waiting." She closed the program quickly and packed her bag. Yes, sir. Good night. Good night, Lila, he said. After she left, Adrian stood there for a while staring at the screen she had been working on. Her fix was perfect. Not just correct, but thoughtful. She had spotted something that even his trained staff had missed. The next morning, Adrian called a quick team meeting. I looked at the test file last night, he said. The error's been fixed. Does anyone know who solved it? Daniel smiled. Actually, sir, that was Lila. She stayed late and found the issue. The room went silent for a moment. Then someone muttered, "That girl again?" Adrian ignored the tone. "Good work," he said firmly. "Let's keep an eye on her progress. She has potential." After that day, more people started noticing her talent. Some were impressed, some jealous, but most couldn't help but respect her. She was polite to everyone, never tried to show off, and was always the first to thank someone who helped her. One Friday afternoon, Adrian found her sitting in the lounge during a short break, reading a thick book on computer systems. He sat down across from her. "Still studying even during your break?" he asked. She laughed softly. "I like to understand how things really work. When I was younger, our old computer at home broke. We couldn't afford to fix it, so I watched online videos until I learned to fix it myself. That's how I started learning." Adrian smiled. Self-taught. "That's rare these days," she shrugged lightly. "I guess I just wanted to help my mom. She uses the computer to find cleaning jobs, and when it stopped working, she was upset. I didn't like seeing her that way." Adrian nodded, touched by her honesty. "You care a lot about her." "She's done everything for me," Lila said softly. "Sometimes I wish I could do more for her. I know she gets tired, but she never complains." Adrian leaned back, his eyes thoughtful. "You already are doing something for her, Lila. You're building a future she can be proud of." Lila smiled at that, her eyes bright. "I hope so, sir." The following week, Adrian gave her a small project of her own. It wasn't anything big, just a simple database update for one of the smaller clients. But for Lila, it meant everything. She worked on it carefully for days, checking every detail twice before submitting it. When the results came back flawless, Adrian felt a quiet pride, the kind of pride a mentor feels when a student finally shines. One evening, when most employees had gone home, Adrian invited Lila to sit down in his office again. "You did very well on that project," he said. "You handled it better than some of our junior staff." "Thank you, sir," she said, smiling nervously. "I was really scared I'd mess it up." "You didn't. You proved that you can take responsibility." He looked at her seriously. "Tell me, have you ever thought about applying for a scholarship?" Lila blinked in surprise. "A scholarship?" "Yes, for university. You could study computer science properly. I could help you with the recommendation letter." Her eyes widened. "I don't even know how to apply, sir. And what if I'm not good enough?" Adrian chuckled softly. "You fixed company software errors and handled a client call without training. I think you're good enough." She laughed too, her nervousness fading. "Maybe I'll try then." "Good," he said. "You should." After that day, Adrian started guiding her more directly. He gave her books to read, online courses to follow, and small technical tasks to practice. Every evening, she'd stop by his office to show what she'd learned. The bond between them grew naturally, not like boss and worker, but like teacher and student. However, not everyone saw it that way. The rumors that had started earlier began to spread again, whispered in corners, carried by people who didn't understand. One afternoon, as Lila was packing up to leave, she overheard two employees talking in the hallway. "She's just a cleaner's daughter," one said. "Why is the boss giving her special treatment?" "Maybe he feels sorry for her," the other replied with a laugh. Lila pretended not to hear, but their words stung. She walked out quietly, blinking back the hurt. That evening, she was quieter than usual. Adrian noticed immediately. "Is something wrong?" he asked. She shook her head quickly. "No, sir. Everything's fine," but her tone gave her away. Adrian waited a moment, then said gently, "You don't have to hide it." "Someone said something, didn't they?" Lila hesitated, then nodded slowly. "It's just, some people think I'm here because of pity. They don't think I deserve to be here." Adrian's expression softened. "Lila, people will always talk. It's easier to criticize than to understand. Don't let that stop you." She looked down. "I try not to, sir. But sometimes it's hard." "I know," he said quietly. "When I first started my company, people said I'd fail because I didn't come from money. They laughed behind my back. but I used that as fuel. I told myself I'd make them eat their words, and I did. She looked up at him, a faint smile on her lips. You really did, sir, he smiled back. So will you. Just keep doing your best. Let your work speak for you. The next few weeks, Lila threw herself into her tasks even harder. She stayed late, practiced coding at home, and even began creating small programs on her own. Adrian saw her determination and felt proud but also protective. He knew the world could be cruel to someone like her. Smart, hardworking, but from humble beginnings. One day she came running into his office holding her phone. Sir, look at this. He looked at the screen. She had built a small app that helped schedule cleaning services automatically. Something simple but practical. I made it for my mom, she explained eagerly. She can now organize her cleaning clients easily. It keeps track of their addresses and dates so she doesn't forget. Adrian stared at the screen, amazed. You built this by yourself? Yes, sir. I just used what I learned here and online. It's not perfect yet, but it works. He couldn't help but smile. Lila, this is impressive. You've got real potential. Don't stop here. Keep improving it. Her face lit up with pride. I will, sir. Thank you. That night, after everyone left, Adrian sat alone in his office again, thinking. He realized that helping Lila had done something to him, too. He had started looking at people differently. He used to see his employees as numbers, projects, deadlines. Now he saw stories, struggles, dreams. He thought about his own journey, how someone once gave him a chance when he didn't deserve it. Maybe now it was his turn to do the same for someone else. As the city lights flickered outside the window, Adrian smiled quietly to himself. He had found something far more valuable than any deal or contract, a reminder that real success wasn't just about money or power. It was about giving someone else the chance to shine, and though neither of them knew it yet, Lila's small act of answering a stranger's phone call would soon lead to something that would change both of their lives forever. Would you like me to turn this Part 3 text into a downloadable docs or .pdf file? Formatted cleanly for storytelling or YouTube narration? Of course, and here's Imrabashan or Part 1 of your story written in a simple, natural English on and continuing directly from Part 3. The language is smooth, emotional and human-centered, with a realistic tone suitable for narration or adaptation. About 1,500 words. The next few months moved quickly. Lila was no longer just an intern who quietly watched others work. She had become a part of the office family. Her confidence had grown, her skills had improved, and she was slowly building a reputation for being both smart and kind. Every morning, she would greet everyone with a warm smile and head straight to the IT room. She was often the first to arrive and the last to leave. Her little notebook, once filled with questions, was now full of handwritten codes, sketches, and small ideas for future projects. Adrian noticed the change in her. She walked differently now, with quiet confidence. She no longer hesitated to speak during meetings or share her thoughts. Her words were calm but carried weight, and people listened. One Monday morning, the company was facing a big problem. A client's system had crashed overnight, and the staff was in panic mode. The issue needed to be fixed before noon, or the company would lose a major contract. Adrian was on the phone with the client, trying to calm them down, while his technical team scrambled to find the error. Lila stood in the corner watching the chaos. After a few minutes, she quietly walked to one of the computers and started typing. No one paid attention to her at first. The room was filled with voices, phones ringing, and keyboards clicking. Then after a few minutes, she raised her hand. I think I found it, she said softly. Everyone turned to look at her. Adrian lowered the phone. You found what? The bug, she said. It's not in the main code, it's in the backup. Someone updated it without syncing properly. The lead technician hurried over to her desk. Show me. She pointed to the screen, explaining what she saw. Within minutes, the entire team realized she was right. They made the correction, restarted the system, and everything came back online. Adrian finished his call, relief washing over him. The client was happy again and the crisis was over. He looked at Lila, who stood quietly, looking unsure if she had done something wrong. Lila, he said with a smile, you just saved us from losing one of our biggest clients. The room broke into applause. Even the technicians who had once doubted her looked at her with respect. She blushed, smiling shyly. I just saw something strange and checked it, sir. That's what makes a good engineer, Adrian said. Seeing what others miss. After that day, things changed even more. Lila's name began to spread across the company. People started asking for her help, and she became known as the young intern who solved the impossible bug. But not everyone was happy about her growing popularity. A few senior staff members felt threatened. They whispered behind her back, saying she was only favored because the boss liked her. One afternoon, as Adrian was leaving his office, he overheard two employees talking near the printer. "She's just lucky," one said. "If it wasn't for the boss, she wouldn't even be here." Adrian stopped and listened quietly. The other replied, "You know how it goes. Some people get special treatment." He walked away without saying anything, but their words stayed with him. He didn't want Lila to be hurt by gossip. She had worked hard for everything she'd achieved. Later that evening, he called her into his office. She looked worried, thinking she might have done something wrong. "Sit down, Lila," he said kindly. "I wanted to talk to you about something." She sat carefully, holding her notebook close. "Is everything all right, sir?" "Yes," he said. "Everything's fine. You're doing great. But I need you to understand something important. When people see someone succeed, they often feel jealous. They talk, they gossip, and they try to bring others down. It doesn't mean you've done anything wrong, it just means you're standing out." Lila nodded slowly. "I've heard some things," she admitted. "It doesn't feel nice, but I try to ignore it." Adrian smiled gently. "Good. Don't waste your energy proving them wrong. Just keep doing your work. Your results will speak louder than their words." She nodded again, her eyes steady. "I will, sir." From that day forward, Lila focused even harder on her learning. She continued building small apps and systems, often testing them during her free time. Adrian sometimes found her in the office even after everyone had gone home, her eyes glued to the screen, her fingers flying across the keyboard. One evening, he brought her a cup of tea. "You'll wear yourself out if you keep working like this," he said. She smiled. "I just want to finish this idea before I forget it." He laughed softly. That's how real innovators think. Weeks turned into months, and soon the company held its annual staff gathering, a big event where employees shared their projects and ideas. Adrian decided to let Lila present her small cleaning app that she had built for her mother. At first, she was nervous, but he encouraged her. When the day came, she stood in front of the audience, hands slightly trembling but voice clear. She showed them how her app helped small workers manage their clients easily. The staff watched in silence, clearly impressed. When she finished, the room erupted in applause. Even the employees who had doubted her earlier couldn't hide their admiration. Her mother, who had been invited as a surprise guest, wiped away tears of pride from the audience. After the event, Adrian stood beside her and said quietly, "You did well. Lila, you've come a long way," she smiled. "Thank you, sir. I couldn't have done it without you." He shook his head. "You did it because you believed in yourself. I just gave you the chance." That night, as the party continued, people came to congratulate her. For the first time, she felt she truly belonged there, not as the cleaner's daughter, but as someone who had earned her place. But with recognition came new challenges. The next week, Lila's story started spreading online after a local business magazine published a small article about her app and her journey. She became a local inspiration, especially to young students from low-income families. Messages poured in from people saying her story gave them hope. Adrian watched it all with pride, but he also worried. Fame could be a double-edged sword. He wanted to protect her from the pressure that often came with attention. One day, as they walked out of the office together, he said quietly, "You know, success isn't just about talent. It's also about staying grounded when the world starts to notice you." She nodded. "I know, sir. I'm not used to all this attention, but I'll stay focused. I still have a lot to learn," he smiled. That's the right attitude. Not long after, the company received an invitation to present one of their projects at a big technology conference. Adrian decided to take Lila along. She couldn't believe it when he told her. "Me? At a conference?" she said, eyes wide with disbelief. "Yes," he said. "You've earned it. It'll be a great learning experience." She worked tirelessly to prepare. When the day arrived, she stood beside Adrian on the big stage, surrounded by hundreds of professionals. She spoke clearly, explaining their software with confidence and passion. The audience loved her. After the presentation, several people came to shake her hand. One of them, a university professor, was so impressed that he offered to help her apply for a scholarship. Lila could hardly believe it. Her dream of studying computer science was finally becoming real. When she told her mother that night, Mrs. Evelyn cried tears of joy. "I always knew you were meant for something great," she said, hugging her daughter tightly. But through all the happiness, Lila never forgot where she came from. She continued helping her mother, still humble, still gentle. She didn't let success change her heart. Adrian often watched the two of them from a distance, mother and daughter standing together, smiling. It reminded him of something he once read. When you lift one person, you lift generations. The story of the cleaner's daughter had started as a simple accident, a forgotten phone call. But it had become something much bigger. It had changed how people in the company saw success, talent, and worth. And though Adrian didn't say it aloud, he knew that Lila had also changed him. She had reminded him why he started his company in the first place, not just to make money, but to make a difference. As the months went by, Lila continued to grow, learning more every day. She became not just a student, but an inspiration, and Adrian, who once thought he had seen it all, realized that sometimes the greatest lessons come from the most unexpected people. The cleaner's daughter had become a symbol of hope, a reminder that dreams don't depend on where you start, but on how much you're willing to try. And while her journey was still far from over, one thing was clear. The best was yet to come. Would you like me to now create this as a clean docs or PDF document, formatted for narration or reading, so you can download and use it for your story series? Of course, here's on part 5 of your story, written in simple human-style language with emotional depth and a natural tone. It continues smoothly from part 4, around 1,500 words long, and is suitable for narration or adaptation. Months passed quickly, and the seasons began to change. The city that once felt big and cold now seemed warm and full of possibilities for Lila. Her scholarship application had been sent, and all she could do was wait. While she waited, she kept working at the company after school, never losing her focus or humility. Adrian often saw her in the office garden during lunch breaks, sitting with a sandwich in one hand and a small notebook in the other, writing new ideas. She still wore the same modest clothes, still smiled at everyone, still spoke with the same soft voice. But there was something different about her now, a light in her eyes, a quiet strength that only came from believing in herself. One chilly morning, the office was buzzing with news. A letter had arrived from the university. Lila's hands trembled as she opened it. Her mother stood beside her, holding her breath. Then Lila gasped softly, covering her mouth. Tears filled her eyes as she whispered, "I got in. I got the scholarship." Her mother burst into tears and hugged her tightly. Adrian, standing nearby, smiled proudly. "You did it," he said gently. "You earned it, Lila." That moment felt like a dream come true. For years, her mother had worked quietly in the background, scrubbing floors and cleaning offices so her daughter could have a better life. Now, it was finally happening. In the weeks that followed, everyone in the office congratulated Lila. People who once whispered about her now praised her achievements. Even those who had doubted her before were genuinely happy for her. The atmosphere in the company felt lighter, more hopeful, as if her success had touched everyone's hearts. Adrian decided to host a small farewell celebration for her before she left for university. He booked a modest hall and invited the entire staff. The evening was filled with laughter, music, and warm memories. When it was time for speeches, Adrian stood up first. He looked around at his employees and then at Lila and her mother, who were sitting in the front row. "I've run this company for many years," he began, "and I've seen many talented people come and go. But sometimes someone walks in and reminds us what hard work and determination truly mean. Lila came here not because of privilege, but because of potential. She taught us that brilliance can be found in the most unexpected places, and that kindness and humility make success even more meaningful." He paused, his voice filled with emotion. "I'm proud of her, and I'm proud of Mrs. Evelyn too, who raised her with such strength and grace." Everyone clapped. Lila stood up, her eyes wet with tears, and hugged him. "Thank you, sir. You believed in me when no one else did." After Adrian's speech, it was Lila's turn to speak. She walked to the microphone slowly, her voice trembling at first but growing stronger with every word. "When I first came here," she said, "I was just a girl waiting for her mother to finish cleaning. I never imagined that one small moment, Picking up a ringing phone and would change my life. That day I spoke without fear, and someone decided to listen. That someone was Mr. Cole. The crowd smiled warmly. She continued. He didn't see where I came from. He saw what I could become. And that made all the difference. I hope one day I can do the same for someone else, to help them see that their dreams are possible too. When she finished, the whole room rose in applause. Her mother was crying openly now, her hands clasped tightly. Adrian felt his heart swell with pride and something even deeper, gratitude. After the celebration ended, Lila and her mother walked with Adrian outside. The night air was cool, the city lights glowing softly in the distance. "I'll never forget everything you did for us," Mrs. Evelyn said. "You gave my daughter a chance when we had nothing to offer." Adrian smiled gently. "You gave her everything she needed already. Love, values, and strength. I just gave her a space to shine." They stood there in silence for a while, watching the stars. It was one of those moments that didn't need many words. When Lila left for university, the office felt different. Her desk was empty, but her spirit lingered. People still talked about her ideas, her kindness, her laughter. It was as if she had left behind more than memories. She had left inspiration. Adrian sometimes found himself thinking about that first day, the day he found her answering his phone. It had seemed like such a small thing, but it had changed everything. Life, he thought, had a way of surprising you when you least expected it. Months passed again and the company grew. New projects, new faces, new opportunities came and went. Adrian stayed busy, but every now and then, he wondered how Lila was doing. One afternoon, about a year later, he received an email. The subject line read, "Invitation to University Innovation Awards Ceremony." It was from Lila. She was being recognized for her software project, a program designed to help small local businesses manage finances and clients easily. She had invited him to attend. Adrian didn't hesitate. He cleared his schedule and drove to the university that weekend. The auditorium was full of students, parents, and professors. He spotted Lila on stage, now more grown-up, confident, and glowing with joy. When it was her turn to speak, she took a deep breath and smiled at the crowd. "I never imagined I would stand here one day," she said. "Everything I've achieved began with one small act of kindness. Someone believed in me when I was just a cleaner's daughter with a dream." Her voice softened as she continued. "That person is sitting right here today, my mentor, Mr. Cole. He taught me that success isn't just about what you earn, but what you share. He showed me that opportunity can change a life forever." The audience turned toward Adrian and applauded. He felt a lump in his throat. He wasn't the kind of man who showed emotion easily, but that day he couldn't hold back a tear. After the ceremony, Lila introduced him to her professors and friends. Everyone admired her, not only for her intelligence but for her humility. She spoke proudly about her roots, about her mother, and about the lessons she'd learned from her time at the company. Later that evening, as they walked through the campus garden, she said softly, "I want to create something that helps young people like me, kids who have big dreams but small chances." Adrian nodded. "That's exactly what you should do. Use what you've learned to open doors for others," she smiled. "That's the plan." As they said goodbye, Adrian realized that their story had come full circle. The girl who once picked up his phone by accident was now standing tall, ready to change the world in her own way. Years later, Lila's project turned into a real business. She employed dozens of people, many from low-income families. Her company became known for its community work, helping others get education and training. She even partnered with Adrian's firm on several projects, giving back to the place where it all began. Mrs. Evelyn retired from cleaning and spent her days happily watching her daughter's success. She often said, "All I ever wanted was for her to have a better life. Now I can rest easy knowing she's making the world better too." One afternoon, Adrian visited their new office, a bright, cheerful space filled with young people working passionately. On one wall hung a framed quote, "A small act of belief can change a life forever." Beneath it was a photo of Lila and her mother from the night of her farewell party. Adrian smiled as he looked around. Lila walked over holding a cup of coffee. "Do you like the quote?" she asked. He nodded. "It's perfect. It's true." She looked around at her team and said quietly, You were the first to believe in me. I just want to keep that circle of kindness going. He placed a hand on her shoulder. You already are. They stood there for a moment, both silent, both grateful for the strange twist of fate that had brought them together years ago. And as the sun poured through the windows, lighting up the faces of young workers full of hope, Adrian realized something profound. Success wasn't measured by the wealth you gathered, but by the lives you touched along the way. The story that began with a phone call had turned into a legacy, a reminder that every person, no matter where they come from, carries a spark waiting to be seen, and sometimes, all it takes is one person to answer, and another to truly listen. Would you like me to now compile all 5 parts into one well-formatted document, Word or PDF, for easier reading, uploading, or narration?